Hi, everyone. Welcome to, this is the fifth episode of Passitpro's Tips for the Test. I think as many of you know, my name is Idel Datloff. I am the creator of Passitpro. But I'm also proud to say that I'm a social worker for a very long time who's very experienced, but also a social worker who has taken the test. And for a long time, right after I took the test, I started tutoring other social workers, and it was really a tremendous opportunity to sit with people one by one and to see what kind of materials, what kind of help worked for them, what kind of studying worked for this, to see what was a good match for this particular test. And that's the beginning of where I created the materials for Passitpro, not just from textbooks or from lists of topics that you need to know, but from a really good idea of knowing what was on the test and then what you could best do to learn them. So one of the things I'd like to talk about with you briefly this evening is that there are different kinds of questions on the test, and sometimes that requires a difference for how you kind of figure stuff out. So for example, there are plenty of fact questions on the test. What's the name of, what's the definition of this or that? Very straightforward, and for that, you just study, learn, memorize, and that's fine. In addition, however, there are what is called the situational questions that Mary Jo is coming to tell you about some terrible problems she's had with her teenage kids, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the reasoning ones that are more present on the clinical, both the master's and the clinical test especially, where you've really got to figure out from everything that is presented there, sort of very specific conclusions, putting facts together. But when I work with students, what I hear so often is, well, I can get it down to 2 answers, but then I don't know how to pick. And the reason for that is that when the 4 answers are written, one of them, okay, will be the right one. But the others are often written in ways that are sort of very reasonable and very possible, but maybe not exactly for the specific question that is being asked, right at that moment. So you've really got to be very careful and not just sort of saying, well, generally that's a good thing to do, because it might be, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the right answer for that question. And when I say that question, I really mean what is actually happening in that room? Where's the energy? Where's the action in that room with you, the social worker, in that question? So I have a question that I'm going to use to illustrate so I can show you kind of what I'm talking about. But what I'd also like you to think about, let's say I said to you, hey, right now I'd like you to write a practice question that, right now. And if you would say, okay, probably the first thing you'd say was, well, wait a minute, on what should I write it about? On what topic? And that's, of course, what any question writer will have to do. So just think how nice and useful it would be for you if you can, when you read the question, if you can not just figure out what you think this social worker should do at that moment, but if you can figure out, like kind of track back to what is the topic, what is this question all about? That would be a really helpful thing for you to be able to do. So let's take a look at the question that's posted right here, and I'll read it. This is about Jeannette. A social worker in private practice had just received a subpoena from the county court to appear and testify regarding her client who is involved in a contested divorce. This question's kind of long. Sometimes there will be some this long on the test, some of them are shorter. She was concerned that the proceedings might require her to disclose specific details about severe traumatic events in her client's childhood, which was the focus of their work together. Her client had never discussed these events with her spouse and was overcome by fears of being exposed and humiliated in public. Her client had become anxious and panicky to the point of threatening self-harm. To best help her client, Jeannette decided to, okay, there's a lot going on in this question. It's very complicated. So you not only have to decide read it again, and read it carefully. That's probably the most important suggestion or tip I can give you for the test. Read the question carefully. You've got to make sense out of it in order to then say, well, what is going on? What's the issue here that the test writer or the question writer is trying to figure out, do I know? And there are several sort of different things going on. We've got a social worker who has to handle a subpoena. That it could be a question about that. Maybe she doesn't know, what the rules are. What is she allowed to? What does she have to do? What is she allowed to do? So that could be one issue. Another part of this is that the meaning of the court having access to this information has a lot of meaning to this client. But the question makes it very clear that there's an issue of safety here. It says that to the point of threatening self-harm. Well, safety is number one at all times. So you can't ignore that. And even though the issue of subpoena, the issue of confidentiality and privacy, those are relevant. But when you've got something to do with self-harm, you know that that's going to have to be addressed. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at the answer choices. And I think you might find that more than one of them sounds like okay. A, request that the court agree to maintain the records under seal, hidden from public scrutiny. Okay. Work intensively with her client to help her carefully rehearse and prepare her testimony. Okay. With her client's permission, discuss the problem with her client's attorney to get his advice on how her client can best testify and protect herself. And the last one, D, use this crisis to help her client face her fears. Okay. Anybody have any ideas, or I guess that's what you have to figure out. Why is one of them only the correct answer? Now, as I look through all four of these, I think that all of them seem like caring, helpful, useful things to do. Well, so that's going to be a problem if I like more than one. But so what you have to find, so before you can, if you do all your figuring out just focusing on the questions, you might not be able to get any clarity for why one is better than the others. What you have to do is stay with the question and figure out in your mind, answer the question, what is going on here? What is happening that sort of like, that's what I meant, where's the energy, where's the action? And the main energy that always takes the priority is she has to do something that is going to protect her client's safety and well-being. A lot of the, confidentiality and all of that, court preparation for testimony, all kinds of things, which isn't really a social worker's job. But everything has to be put aside when there's an issue of safety. And so if that's clear in your head before you go and look at the answers, that's going to give you a very good reason to choose one of the answers. And as I look through them again, A is really the only one that would protect this information from being available to the public. And so that would certainly be her first step of what she would attempt to do. So again, the message I'm trying to give you is don't get lost in all the answers, because the test writers often write very nice wrong answers. And that's something we try to do on Passitpro, on our sample questions, on the sample test we have, because that's what happens, that's what you'll find on the test. So if you put all your thinking so that you can come to a conclusion in a simple way of what's important here, what's the most important thing here, that's going to help you pick the right answer. I hope that this is a useful way of approaching, maybe not all the questions, and the fact questions you don't have to do this with, but certainly with the situational and the reasoning questions. Figure it all out from the question. And even if you can't exactly figure it out, push yourself, because you're going to want to go right to those answers. Push yourself, even brainstorm a little, which will, I think, which will be helpful. So again, I hope this is something for you to think about, something that can be useful. And I think this can give you an idea of, this is one of the very many different tips and strategies and helping you understand the test that you will find on the Passitpro's online license course. It isn't just a whole bunch of facts, and practice questions. You've really got to go beyond just facts and memorize it. You have to understand how the test thinks, and then how you can best figure out what that thinking is, and then know and have a reason for why you're going to pick this answer rather than that answer. I also want to mention that we're running a special right now. It's kind of an investment that you really can't lose. From now until actually Christmas Eve, until December 24th, if you purchase Passitpro's course and you take it, and should you fail, and we hope certainly that you won't fail, and we'll be there to help you, as will the course, of course. But should you fail, you will get a full refund. The only thing we ask is that you register again by December 24th, and you actually take the test before March 1st, by the last day in February. If you have any questions about that, you can email me. There's a place to send me a message at the website, Passitpro, www.passitpro.com. I hope this was useful for you. It takes some practice, but it can be a really good strategy, a really good skill to develop. Okay, and happy holidays to everybody.